Are you ready to face what could be the worst year in human history? Imagine that everything you once believed to be certain begins to crumble. The darkest prophecies of the apocalypse, written thousands of years ago, could be closer than we think. Could the signs already be here? And could we be about to witness the beginning of the Great Fall? This is a call to reflection, but also to fear. Leave a comment if you believe a prophecy is already being fulfilled among us. The Book of Revelation, with its visions and symbols, has always held a fascinating and terrifying power over humanity. There is something haunting about the way its words seem to resonate through time, as if they were destined to come true. The prophecies contained within are not merely ancient predictions, they are warnings that call out to us, modern readers, who, over the centuries, may have lost sight of their profound weight. What if these seemingly distant and mysterious predictions began to manifest before our very eyes? How would it feel to realize that what was written millennia ago is now becoming real and tangible? In each verse, Revelation presents us with a dark and often inevitable vision of a world in transformation, a humanity that, through its choices, edges closer to the abyss. What is most unsettling is that, as we observe current events, we begin to see signs that these prophecies may not be as far from reality as we once thought. There is something deeply disconcerting about recognizing how, in many ways, the modern world mirrors the images described in Revelation. Extreme climate changes, endless wars, and economic crises that impact millions of lives. All these events lead us to question ourselves. Are we truly heading toward the fulfillment of these prophecies? The natural disasters we witness today, such as devastating earthquakes and unexpected tsunamis, recall the destruction described in the apocalyptic visions. War, hunger, and disease afflicting so many regions of the world echo the tribulations foretold. Perhaps even more alarming is the growing sense of uncertainty in the air, as if we are standing on the brink of great change. Yet it is crucial to remember that Revelation is not solely about destruction. It also carries a message of reflection and repentance. Each of these prophecies, no matter how terrifying, challenges us to look inward and question what we are doing with our world. Are we aware of the consequences of our actions? Are we, in some way, contributing to the fulfillment of these prophecies? Revelation speaks of a dark future, but it also calls us to consider our role in the present. Perhaps, by heeding these ancient warnings, we can still alter the course of history. This duality between destruction and redemption, the end and the beginning, is what makes Revelation both fascinating and terrifying. The prophecies are not meant to merely scare us, but to serve as warnings about the path we are on. The Book of Revelation is a dark mirror of our reality, reflecting the consequences of human choices and reminding us that we still have the power to change the course of events if we are willing to confront our flaws and limitations. When we observe the signs and events that seem to align with these prophecies, we cannot ignore the feeling that we are being called to act. Revelation invites us to wake up, to reflect on what truly matters. Perhaps it is time to appreciate what we have, take better care of our planet, and rethink our relationships and priorities. While the idea that these prophecies could become reality sends chills down our spines, perhaps that is precisely their purpose. To remind us that true transformation begins within. If apocalyptic prophecies point to a future of chaos and suffering, could we not, through conscious action and more responsible decisions, create a different story? A future where the shadows of the apocalypse are not realized, but the light of a new beginning shines through. As we explore these ancient words, the prophecies of Revelation seem to unfold before our eyes. It is as though the curtains of a distant reality have parted, revealing a possible future full of mystery and awe. Each prophecy carries a warning, a challenge that humanity must heed. They are like echoes of a future that can still be changed if we are attentive to what is around us. Next, we will unveil 10 of these prophecies that, in some way, are already beginning to align with the times we live in. The four riders of the apocalypse. The four riders of the apocalypse are one of the most powerful and disturbing images in the sacred book. Described as riding through the world and bringing with them four devastating forces, they represent not only physical catastrophes, but also emotional and spiritual destruction that awaits us if we are not careful. Each rider is a symbol of a dark aspect of humanity, a reflection of the forces that have the power to unbalance the world and its societies. Let us explore in more detail who these riders are and what they represent. The Rider of Conquest, Rider of the White Horse. The first rider is mounted on a white horse and carries a bow. His image is often mistaken for that of a redeemer, a charismatic leader who comes to conquer and bring peace. However, the true nature of this rider lies in conquest achieved at the expense of freedom and autonomy. This rider symbolizes authoritarian regimes and dominant ideologies that impose their power, often through manipulation or war. The bow he carries is a silent weapon, representing the spread of ideas, beliefs, and empires seeking to dominate the world by force. In modern times, this rider can be seen in political movements or leaders who promise great transformations, but ultimately lead humanity into cycles of oppression. The Rider of War, Rider of the Red Horse. The second rider is mounted on a red horse and wields a sword, a symbol of war and conflict. His presence is unmistakable. He represents violence, destruction, and chaos brought on by battles both internal and external. The sword he wields cuts relentlessly, dividing nations, families, and even individuals from one another. War, often sparked by greed, revenge, or intolerance, destroys everything in its path, leaving only pain and suffering. This rider can be associated with armed conflicts in various parts of the world, the intensification of geopolitical tensions, and the feelings of division and hostility among different groups. The constant presence of wars, whether large-scale or small skirmishes, reminds us that humanity has yet to learn how to live in harmony. The Rider of Famine, Rider of the Black Horse. Riding on a black horse, the third rider carries a set of scales, symbolizing scarcity and inequality. Hunger is one of the cruelest consequences of our society, where wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few, while millions of people around the world die of starvation or suffer from malnutrition. The Rider of Famine walks with the scales, indicating that food and resources are distributed unfairly. He brings not only the lack of food, but also the growing inequality between the rich and the poor, between developed and developing countries. Inflation, food speculation, economic crises, and climate change impacting the most vulnerable are clear examples of how this prophecy manifests in modern times. The Rider of Death, Rider of the Pale Horse. The fourth rider is mounted on a pale yellow horse, and his figure is the most terrifying of all. He carries a scythe and is accompanied by Hades, symbolizing the realm of the dead. This rider represents death in its broadest sense, not only physical death, but also the death of dreams, hopes, and dignity. In modern times, he can be seen in major health crises, such as epidemics and pandemics, which claim millions of lives and leave an irreversible impact on societies. But he also symbolizes social, cultural, and spiritual deaths, like the emptying of communities, the rise in suicides, and the emotional toll caused by isolation and despair. The presence of this rider reminds us of the fragility of human life and the inevitability of death, while also urging us to confront our own mortality and embrace the urgency to live more meaningfully and authentically. The Great Tribulation. The tribulation, described as a period of immense suffering, is another prophecy that fills us with fear. Revelation speaks of an era in which humanity will be tested to its limits, with persecutions, calamities, and a profound loss of faith. When we observe the political, social, and economic tensions crossing the borders of countries and cultures, it is difficult not to feel a growing sense of anxiety. As if something monumental is about to happen, the false prophet and the Antichrist revelation also warns of the arrival of deceptive figures, a false prophet and an Antichrist, who will come to mislead the masses and divert people from the true path. In a world filled with disinformation, fake news, and populist leaders who manipulate people's faith and fears, many wonder if we are already being deceived by figures offering simple answers to complex questions, only to lead us into chaos. The mark of the beast, 666. The number of the beast symbolizes the loss of freedom and subjugation to an absolute system of control. The mark, described in the scriptures as a way to identify those who belong to the Antichrist's regime, can be interpreted as a warning about the erosion of autonomy and privacy in the modern world. Today, surveillance, governmental control, and the power of large corporations grow stronger, leaving us to question how much freedom we truly have. The Fall of Babylon Revelation describes the fall of Babylon, a city symbolizing corruption, materialism, and sin. Many interpret this as a metaphor for world powers that prioritize profit and power at the expense of human and environmental well-being. The decline of empires, the widening gap of inequality, and environmental degradation force us to ask, are we witnessing the fall of our own modern Babylon? The Battle of Armageddon, Revelation, foretells a final battle between the forces of good and evil in a place called Armageddon. This apocalyptic war, the climax of the conflict between heaven and earth, can also be seen as a representation of the ongoing struggle we face, both within ourselves and in society. It reflects the battle between forces of destruction and renewal, as well as the tension between preserving our planet and exploiting it for short-term gains. The fullness of God's wrath, Revelation, describes a time when God will pour out his wrath upon those who choose wickedness. This divine vengeance serves as a sobering reminder of the consequences of destructive actions, both individually and collectively. It calls on humanity to reconsider its path. Are we ready to face the results of our choices, or will we continue down the road of ruin? The new heaven and the new earth. Despite visions of destruction, Revelation promises the creation of a new heaven and a new earth, a world where peace and harmony prevail and evil has no power. This prophecy represents humanity's deepest desire, a world free from pain and suffering. But achieving it requires overcoming present failures and striving for genuine spiritual and collective transformation. The great night of weeping and lamentation, one of the most painful images in Revelation, is the great night of weeping and lamentation, a moment of immense anguish as people face the consequences of their actions. This prophecy portrays a late awakening when humanity, after living selfishly and destructively, finally recognizes the cost of its choices. However, for many, this awakening comes too late, leaving only devastation in its wake. The symbolism of the night. The night is not just a reference to time, but a symbol of ignorance, indifference, and a lack of vision. It represents a moment when humanity confronts the truth about its life and the world, realizing too late that opportunities for change were missed. The despair lies in knowing that warnings were ignored and that the chance to make things right has passed. A collective cry. The weeping described is not only personal, but collective, symbolizing humanity's shared suffering due to repeated patterns of failure throughout history. The depth of lamentation. This great lamentation reflects mourning for lost potential, societal corruption, and irreparable damage to essential values like peace and dignity. Even the powerful kings and merchants who benefited from exploitation are depicted as remorseful yet powerless in the face of their irreversible actions. Modern reflections of the Great Night. This lamentation resonates with modern events, such as irreversible environmental losses, growing inequality, and failure to address global crises like pandemics and climate change. As glaciers melt and species go extinct, the Great Night feels less like a metaphor and more like a reality we are living, albeit without full awareness of what we are losing. The lament of future generations beyond current suffering, the prophecy speaks to the legacy we leave behind for future generations. This lamentation reflects the regret of passing on a scarred planet to our children and grandchildren. Are we truly working toward a better future, or are we creating cycles of problems that will culminate in collective despair? A failure to reconcile with the past. The lamentation also symbolizes humanity's failure to reconcile with its history of injustice, violence, and neglect. The great cry emerges as the consequence of unrepentance and short-sighted decisions, underscoring the need to build a sustainable world before it is too late. The final judgment revelation ends with the reminder of a final judgment, where every individual will be judged for their actions. This serves as a call for reflection. Are we living in a way that aligns with our highest values? Are we contributing to a better world, or are we perpetuating cycles of destruction and indifference? If you felt moved by the prophecies of the apocalypse and want to explore how we can change the course of our destiny, subscribe to our channel now. Leave a comment sharing which prophecy resonates with you most and why. Don't forget to watch the upcoming videos on our channel for more insights. Until next time.